So good morning or good afternoon, depending on whether you are in DC or Illinois. Welcome to the University of Illinois System's 2025 Town Hall on Federal Priorities. I'm Paul Weinberger, Assistant Vice President for Federal Relations for the University of Illinois System, and I'm delighted to be the host for today's conversation with U of I System President Tim Killeen. There's a lot happening in DC. I don't have to tell you that. The 119th Congress is getting underway, and we are roughly 10 days into the new administration. So this is a great time for us to be talking about our federal advocacy and engagement. We'll begin with a presentation from President Killeen, recapping our advocacy efforts and other highlights from the past 12 months, and then discussing the system's priorities for congressional and executive action this year. We'll follow that with a question and answer period. Many of you submitted questions when you registered. Thank you so much for that. I know President Killeen will address some of those questions in his remarks, and then we'll try to answer as many of the remaining ones as we can get to in the time we have. Feel free to submit any other questions you may have now using the Q&A function, and if we don't get to those today, we'll plan to follow up later. With that, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce the 20th President of the University of Illinois System. President Killeen, it's a busy time. Thank you so much for joining us today.
And thanks, everybody. Good afternoon to you all in DC. And if you're in Illinois, good morning still. So thanks for participating in this, now our fifth such session. And it's always a great opportunity for me to talk about what's going on at the University of Illinois System, and a great reminder of the importance of our work, of our faculty and staff. And part of my job is to communicate that as effectively as possible. And you are also, and I appreciate this deeply, collectively, one of the most important voices we have, both in your advocacy for the vital work happening across the University of Illinois System and in your feedback and ideas. And so we're in listening mode as much as anything else. You also help shape our priorities and our directions. And as you know, and Paul alluded to, this is a really important time of rapid change in our country, in our state, and in higher education in general. And as you all know, we are absolutely apartisan. We're law-abiding. We are responsive to agency requests, but we're still grounded in our land-grant mission, which is what is our job of access, affordability, graduation, success of our student body, and that student body is growing. Also in a research enterprise that has many, many ramifications, and in economic development. So I'm going to touch on those kind of things and give a system update. So as you all know, education, research, and discovery and economic development are and always will be a permanent part, a core really of our mission. And so let me just shift gears and tell you about some of the things happening at universities. 3 universities in Urbana-Champaign, Chicago, and Springfield. And it's, I believe, fresh evidence that when it comes to students and their families, and the creation and dissemination of new knowledge, we're getting it right. There's always more to do, of course. As with so many colleges and universities facing declining enrollment, I just want you all to appreciate that we have record high system-wide enrollment. And it's been going up steadily, and our applications that we've received for the next year are also at record highs. So on the demand side, families and students are continuing to come to our doors. The combined U of I system student body numbered 97,772 in the fall, and that's 22% more students than we enrolled a decade ago, and well over half, actually 53%, of the state of Illinois' public university enrollment. And if you've heard me speak before, you've heard me say this, but it bears repeating. 2 students getting a world-class degree is better than 1 student. Why not 97,000 students? So more students means more access, more opportunities, as long and as we're completely committed to maintaining the excellence of our world-class educational opportunities. So we've grown by more than 17,000 students in the past decade. And that's adding the equivalent of a mid-sized university to Illinois. Many of these students might have left Illinois to go to other states, never to return. So part of our mission is to retain talent in our state. And we believe we're doing this as we're seeing this this tremendous growth. And it's been planned growth. We did plan for this, and it's plateauing a little bit in the last few years as we are now in recruitment mode for faculty as well. We also, I want to tell you that we graduate more than ever. It's not just the enrollment and the new freshmen coming in, but it's the success in graduation. We graduated more than 27,000 students in 2024. And these graduates include a 51% increase in Black graduates, 117% increase in Hispanic graduates over the past decade, and significant increases across the board. We have work to do for sure, but this is meaningful progress that's unlike what you're hearing about and reading about in other universities. And we do know that public trust and confidence in the University of Illinois and what it does is in a growth mode in Illinois as well. We're not seeing the decline in public trust, and it's because I believe that we've kept our commitments to affordability and access. We know that sending the graduates out into the world every year has an economic benefit. College graduates will earn more, 1.2 million more over a lifetime. That's what we appreciate. And that's more than somebody who only has a high school diploma. And that's according to the Association of Public and Land-Grant Universities. This economic advantage is undeniably important to those graduates, most of whom stay in the state of Illinois, but it's also of importance to their families and the communities where they live. But dollars and cents aren't the only measure of our success. These graduates are the state's next generation of teachers, doctors, nurses, dentists, engineers, bankers, musicians, artists, and entrepreneurs, but also volunteers, voters, elected officials, concerned citizens who work to make their communities better places to live. And actually, the U of I caucus in the state capital is the biggest caucus in Springfield, as I understand it, direct graduation effects. Each generation of these graduates is the next layer of the deep foundation upon which we build both our economy and our society. We have to improve access, and we're committed to doing that through affordability initiatives. Even with the modest tuition increases approved this month by the Board of Trustees in response to inflation, 2.2% for in-state residents, we have frozen tuition for most of the years of the past decade. So it's been significantly sub-inflationary on the tuition side. We also continue to sharply increase our investment in institutional financial aid. Right now, we provide $298 million in financial aid a year to our students, and that's an increase of over $100 million over the past decade. So we're finding ways through generous benefactors, et cetera, to provide financial aid to our student body at all-time highs as well. When you combine the aid commitment that we have institutionally with state and federal aid, more than a third of our system's undergraduates pay no tuition or fees, nothing at all. And that's something that I hope we're all proud of together. And more than half of the same in-state undergraduate students enrolled across the system pay less than $3,000 a semester. So we're working hard to make it as affordable as we can. As a result, our students graduate with less debt than national averages. They get good jobs on graduation. They pay down whatever debt they have, faster rates than national norms, and they succeed in society. Increasing access and improving outcomes for students are clear priorities for us. We have many of them, as I've mentioned. We need to make sure that they prosper with us. And we do this through recruiting events like our Salute to Academic Achievement, where we host hundreds of high school students every year. We also use our annual state leadership tour to meet with teachers and administrators to learn more about how to reach deserving students who are meritorious, who deserve an opportunity in tertiary education, and who might not be thinking about our universities. And we do that through listening to the students themselves. I take all our chancellors and our leadership to high schools each year. And this last October, the chancellors and I visited several high schools. One area that we're tightly focused on, in part of the things we've learned during our annual state tours, is transfer access. And community college is such an effective way for students and families to save money during the first year or two of undergraduate work. So we've made strong and abiding connections with community college leaders and with organizations founded on transfer success, like 1 Million Degrees in Chicago. Last fall, we enrolled 4,126 transfer students across the system, coming from community colleges to earn a 4-year degree with us. And that's an increase of over 4%. And just this last month, we announced an expansion of the U of I system transfer guarantee. We've had a transfer guarantee, but previously this initiative applied only to students transferring from Illinois community colleges. But now, qualified Illinois high school graduates who want to transfer to any U of I system university from any college or university in the United States are guaranteed admission. So we're recruiting back into the state high school graduates from Illinois through this transfer guarantee program. I'm pretty excited about that. Our chancellors are, without a doubt, in my mind, I may be biased, the best of the best in higher education. With them at the helm and with our commitment to shared governance, please know that our universities are in incredibly capable hands. Chancellor Murray-Lynn Miranda and Chancellor Janet Gooch bring vision and stability to Chicago and Springfield. And under Chancellor Miranda, enrollment is up at UIC over a year ago to just shy of 34,000 students. And that's the second highest enrollment ever in that university's history, and includes an increase in Black enrollment of almost 9%. And under Chancellor Gooch, UIS increased its enrollment of transfer students, online students, and importantly, first-year freshmen as well. Chancellor Robert Jones has overseen almost a decade of incredible growth, record enrollment and excellence in Urbana-Champaign. There was a little dearth of beds last year that we're working on so that we can accommodate all the students that will be arriving next year as well. And it is, of course, as you know, somewhat bittersweet for me personally that Robert will be leaving his post at the end of the academic year. I wish him only the best. And he's not evaporating. He promises me he will be available and around, but I will miss him as a direct colleague and miss the regular interaction we have as friends in his current role. The search for the next chancellor at UIUC has begun with the formation of a search committee. I was just with them this morning. We've also hired a search firm to assist us and are launching a variety of forums for feedback as we proceed. Any commentary that you'd like to share would be most welcome. These are big shoes to fill. The next leadership will have vision, integrity, be a great communicator, and will take advantage of the wind in our sails and propel Urbana-Champaign even to higher heights. The Discovery Partners Institute has continued its vital work on tech talent development, business building, and applied R&D, and it was honored at the NASDAQ, as you can see on the slide. Increasing numbers of people from across Chicago getting tech training through DPI, from middle schoolers to teachers and adults already in the workforce. And this is of significance because the new workforce in this brave new future that we're moving into with AI and computational IT capabilities in all fields of inquiry, it's important that we build a workforce that's talented so that we can attract and retain companies in the Midwest and in Illinois. Through FY25, a total of 2,425 people will have been trained by DPI in tech talent capabilities. And by FY29, that number will reach well over 4,200. But DPI is adapting to changes in the landscape around it, new opportunities, expanding its vision to emphasize global leadership in the computing revolution. And that includes, incredibly excitingly, quantum computing. We've announced plans under Governor Pritzker's leadership to continuing developing the Chicago Loop Hub while also adding a new DPI hub at the Illinois Quantum and Microelectronics Park that I'm sure you've been reading about. The U of I system with its many partners, University of Chicago and many others, Northwestern, et cetera, is playing a leading role in what we now call IQMP, the Illinois Quantum and Microelectronics Park. Incredibly big deal for all of us, for Chicago and our state. This is world leadership in next generation computational capabilities. It's a creation of the state of Illinois, and the U of I system has been asked to help operate and manage the park, building off of our tremendous expertise in engineering and quantum in computer science, etc. So the DPI's new South Hub at the IQMP positions DPI with its workforce development efforts to be embedded in this revolutionary capability for quantum computing. Our Illinois Innovation Network also has prospered over the last year, and IIN, as we call it, for instance, launched something we're calling the Quad Cities Manufacturing Institute. This is all about advanced manufacturing. QCMI is a partnership. The Quad Cities Manufacturing Institute is a partnership linking IIN hubs at Urbana-Champaign and Western Illinois University with the U.S. Army Rock Island Arsenal and Iowa State University to provide cutting-edge research and development and workforce development solutions in advanced manufacturing and materials, something that Illinois and the Midwest has been very strong in for many years, and now we're taking it to another level. IIN's Illinois Broadband Lab also over the year helped create Illinois' State Digital Equity Plan. This will use $23.7 million in federal funds to drive digital skills training, device distribution, and outreach. And so we're working on broadband provision across the whole state. The Broadband Lab's Broadband Ready program is also providing funding for many of the state's public universities to work towards digital capabilities and equity in their regions. These projects have distributed hundreds of laptops and tablets to underserved regions in our states there, where you need access to broadband, trained dozens of what we call digital navigators, and provided dozens of free educational workshops. So this is also part of the land grant mission in action across the state. On international partnerships, we have continued to build and expand partnerships beyond our borders and strengthen those already in place. Partnerships with universities and with non-academic institutions abroad are one of the best means for providing opportunities for our students and faculty beyond our campuses and for finding answers to some of the most pressing challenges of our time. We share with Brazil, for example, opportunities in bioproducts and ag tech. So we share the challenges with other partners of providing clean water, abundant food, access to healthcare, sustainable economic opportunities with partners around the world. Illinois is a globally significant state, and we are a globally significant university system. And this is what I like to call intellectual globalization at work. It's not trade, it's actually problem solving through intellectual partnership. And the cross-border flow of intellectual capital focused on these shared challenges and opportunities. We have a responsibility to harness an exchange of ideas, research, and knowledge, leveraging the power of collaboration to mitigate, if not solve, some of these known challenges. Just one example of these partnerships. Last year, we launched something we're proudly calling Brazil-Illinois, and that's because Brazil ends in IL and Illinois begins in IL. Brazil-Illinois, try it, it'll roll off the tongue if you work at it. It's a new model for collaboration between American higher education and the global South. The new initiative has major new opportunities for student exchange and research collaboration centered on health, medicine, sustainable cities, smart agriculture, notably agriculture, because Brazil is the powerhouse in the Southern Hemisphere, we're the powerhouse in the Northern Hemisphere, climate, bioenergy, and consolidation of democratic institutions, and it's really broad-based partnership and holds great promise. We have also ongoing partnerships in Mexico, Taiwan, in India, Singapore, Canada, Germany, UK, and far beyond. So we're connected through collaborative networks. Now, I'd like to turn to our efforts to engage with federal leadership and agencies, and thank you all for your help in this regard. The President's Executive Leadership Program, known as PELP, is one of our ongoing success stories. PELP enrolls senior level administrators and members of the faculty from across the system who have high potential and interest in leadership roles, and the year-long program includes several days in Washington, D.C. Last May, PELP fellows met with White House and agency officials. We'll do it again this year Illinois congressional delegation members, both parties, academic association leadership to better understand federal issues impacting higher education. And I look forward to joining this year's class of 20 fellows in DC in late April and early May. And some graduates of the Pell program have gone on to be presidents of universities in Iowa, flagship universities, Iowa, Massachusetts, Wyoming, South Carolina, et cetera. So we have a diaspora of leadership too that I'm particularly proud of, connective tissue nationally. On federal engagement, Paul and his staff, along with myself and other system leaders, engage year-round with lawmakers of both parties in particular in Washington and at our universities. Nothing communicates the effectiveness of U of I system like showing leaders in DC our work and impacts. Just a few examples. In May, Federal Railroad Administrator and staff from the office of our two senators and Senator Durbin himself visited Urbana-Champaign for a kickoff event at the National University Rail Center of Excellence. So we do rail at an incredible level of national significance. This $15 million center is working to advance research solutions to enhance safety, efficiency, reliability, and sustainability of both passenger and freight rail transportation. In April, we had a visit by Department of Defense Undersecretary for Research and Engineering, who met with faculty from the Integrated Bioprocessing Research Lab, the Illinois Quantum Information Science and Technology Center, and the Center for Hypersonics and Entry System Studies. We're going to continue this kind of direct connection with key leaders in DC. And in July, Senator Durbin and Representative Underwood joined Chancellor Miranda at a UI Health Roundtable event focusing on maternal health and a new National Institutes of Health funded maternal health research center of excellence that UIC is leading. Next week, I will be going to DC and we'll be meeting with the full bipartisan Illinois delegation to discuss some of these past accomplishments and future opportunities. On federal advocacy, this is really important. We work with the help of committed advocates like all of you to express our positions on key issues affecting higher education. And over the past year, we've shared concerns with members of our congressional delegation about budget cuts on NSF in 2024, made clear our interest in working together to see NSF well-funded this current year and future years. We've also worked in advocacy to rally Illinois' others, colleges and universities, as well as businesses, professional associations, and nonprofits to support robust NSF funding. Additionally, we sent out urgent calls of action that you likely received, urging members of Congress to support strong funding for our base research agency. And that's not the only federal challenge that we're facing. Obviously, our student aid offices have worked tirelessly over the past years to address delays and other issues involved in the rollout of the FAFSA form last year. Almost 60% of our undergraduates receive financial aid that is dependent on FAFSA. So it was a difficult time when those delays occurred. We've also urged the U.S. Department of Education to provide relief to students and families, both in correspondence and in direct one-on-one conversations I've had with senior levels in the department. So that will be an ongoing advocacy effort to improve FAFSA functionality. Let's talk a little bit more about our federal priorities for 2025. Even with a new administration and new Congress, so much of what is important to us remains unchanged. There will be changes and we will adapt and be responsive. But a lot of it does remain unchanged based on our mission as a public university system grounded in the land-grant mission, serving the people of our state through access to educational excellence and the research discovery that, frankly, no other institution in our state can provide at the scale that we do. I've mentioned a couple of times how important financial aid is for our students. Federal Pell Grants are the cornerstone of federal financial aid, and almost 21,000 of our students rely on Pell Grants. So this year, we're continuing to urge Congress to double the maximum Pell Grant award to $13,000 to restore purchasing power for that. In the 70s, the maximum Pell Grant covered nearly 80% of the cost of attendance at four-year public universities. Now it covers less than a third. We are also urging strong congressional support for campus-based aid programs such as supplemental educational opportunity grants and federal work-study grants. More than 2,600 of our students benefit from these grants, and well over 6,300 rely on work-study. Between them, these federal programs help support about 9,000 of our University of Illinois system meritorious students that need that help. Congress can also help meet the needs of American education workforce by expanding programs that benefit students studying to become teachers, like supporting effective educator development grant program, the Teacher Quality Partnership Program, and the Augustus F. Hawkins Center of Excellence Program. We support all of those efforts. Beyond our core mission of educating students by the tens of thousands, the U of I system is an engine for statewide and regional economic development. I'm incredibly proud that we contribute $19 billion or more a year to the state's economy and support more than 164,000 jobs. And we have a whole study that documents this. This happens in part through our faculty and over the $1.3 billion they bring in annually to fund research. Federal support for this work is vital. It has direct benefits. Over 2.2% of the state's GDP is driven by some of this work, so it's very significant. We need, and the country needs, robust funding at the full levels authorized by CHIPS and Science Act for NSF and the Departments of Energy and Commerce, and we will be advocating for that. We know that this year is going to be challenging when it comes to federal funding, and that means that we just have to be more clear in our advocacy and hopefully successful for the programs that fund our researchers and our students, driving the public good and the workforce that the competitive edge of our country needs looking forwards. So we're also urging Congress to reauthorize and fund the National Quantum Initiative Act to support quantum education, workforce, and research. Full federal funding is the fuel that will drive the computing revolution we intend to lead, and that the US needs to preserve and expand its leadership role in the computing revolution that's occurring on our watch. As I said earlier, with backing from the state and federal governments, we are overseeing the new IQMP. I just reiterate, there's nothing else like it anywhere, and it's not our only lane in the quantum revolution. Urbana-Champaign is also home to the Illinois Quantum Information Science and Technology Center and is leading NSF's Quantum Leap Challenge Institute for hybrid quantum architectures and networks. We're deeply embedded in creating next generation computational capabilities that will dwarf what we've had to date, if and when successful. And UIC is leading a DOE funded national consortium that will educate the next generation of quantum engineers. We're also pushing for robust funding of AI research and infrastructure, including efforts such as the NSF-led National Artificial Intelligence Research Resource Program, known as NAIRR, and I hope you will help us with that advocacy to ensure more access to AI resources for research and training. Urbana-Champaign leads 3 of the federally funded national AI institutes, and the National Center for Supercomputing Applications helps to coordinate the NAIRR program and provide significant computing power for AI researchers. So we're heavily into the development of AI for all kinds of economic and societal sectors. Continued support for biomedical research across federal agencies is also imperative. NIH is a major funder of our research through incentives such as UIC's Center for Clinical and Translational Science, as well as funding for interdisciplinary teams of investigators across departments and colleges. In all of this, we remain committed to educating students from all backgrounds, no matter where they come from, what their life history has been. We want to give them world-class opportunities, the kind of opportunities that can help them contribute to society and that can change lives. And federal support is particularly critical for institutions of higher education that serve largely underserved populations, including first-generation students, students from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, from rural regions and inner city students, And so we are very supportive of those kind of efforts, and we want to play our full role. UIC, as you know, is both a Hispanic serving institution and an Asian American and Native American Pacific Islander serving institution. These designations allow UIC to apply for funding set aside under Titles 3 and 5 of the Higher Education Act of 1965. We're therefore urging Congress to provide significant support for Title III and Title V programs, and also to support efforts by UIC and other Hispanic serving institutions to increase the number of Latino and Latina graduate students and professors. The University of Illinois hospital and healthcare system, collectively called UI Health, provides comprehensive healthcare, education, and research to the people of Illinois and beyond. And it's an incredible asset for the state and for Chicago. And I'm immensely proud of what it continues to do. It includes the state's only public hospital, more than 40 outpatient clinics, and 11 qualified mile-square healthcare facilities focused on neighborhoods and communities in need in Chicago, Cicero, and Rockford. UI Health's huge healthcare mission and its support for low-income and disadvantaged people and communities depend on federal programs. So it's incredibly important that Congress increase access to Medicaid coverage and avoid policy changes that could reduce federal funding to states or access to Medicaid patients. That includes, we are going to oppose any cuts to those programs, and we hope you can gain your support in that. We also urge Congress to address the growing use of prior authorization and other barriers to care by health insurers, and to continue supporting the 340B prescription drug program. 340B allows UI Health to leverage drug discounts from pharmaceutical companies at no cost to taxpayers to ensure patients can access care they might otherwise not receive. The U of I system continues to be committed to providing educational opportunities for qualified, meritorious, and deserving undocumented and international students. To support these students, we continue to back legislation such as the DREAM Act, sponsored by Senator Durbin, that will permanently protect these deserving students covered by DACA. We know that the new administration's focus on border security and tightening immigration restrictions. Rest assured, we will work in that context to continue to make the case that our students, our researchers, and high-skilled workers who come to us at the U of I system have the opportunity to grow and prosper and learn. Key provisions of the 2017 Tax Cuts and Job Acts are set to expire this year. So this is part of our advocacy positioning. Congress and the administration are already devising plans to extend these provisions and to address other fiscal priorities through so-called reconciliation legislation. We're watching that carefully. Some of the provisions being proposed, particularly those addressing student aid programs, might be damaging to our students, and we will argue against them as we see and understand them. But there are tax reforms that Congress and the administration can support, that we would support, to make higher education more affordable and more accessible. And this includes consolidating and simplifying the American Opportunity Tax Credit and the Lifelong Learning Credit. Higher education associations have proposed reforms that would allow more low and middle income students to benefit from both. We also support making Pell Grants non-taxable. Charitable giving that benefits our students would also be encouraged by renewing the charitable deduction for all taxpayers, regardless of whether they itemize deductions. We will also urge Congress to increase the level of support allowed under employee-provided educational assistance, currently limited to $5,250 a year. The U of I has been and will remain a powerhouse in agricultural education and research since the very beginning. The brilliant faculty in Urbana-Champaign makes us a global leader in crop and livestock productivity, in biomanufacturing, in fermentation sciences, bioproducts, in ag tech, in nutrition, in health, in food security, climate, workforce, and economic sustainability, resilience to extreme weather events. And much of this work is supported by federal funding provided through and by the Farm Bill. A new 5-year Farm Bill is now a year and a half overdue, so we'll be advocating for that. In writing a new bill, we strongly urge Congress to increase funding for the National Institute of Food and Agriculture's education, research, and extension programs. Congress should also ensure that the next Farm Bill reauthorization helps colleges of agriculture, like ours, to address a large backlog of deferred maintenance and to modernize facilities. In Urbana-Champaign alone, we're facing over $400 million in estimated deferred building maintenance for the College of ACES buildings. We also urge Congress to invest in renewing research, extension, and education facilities by reauthorizing the Research Facilities Act, which provides competitive funding for colleges of agriculture. In recent years, we've seen a lot of disruption in collegiate athletics, as you all know, including conference realignment, challenges to the ability of NCAA to regulate college sports, and new opportunities for student athletes to transfer schools, between schools, and to earn money from commercial use of their own name, image, and likeness, or NIL. But Congress could provide stability going forward in this turbulent period, which we're obviously heavily involved in, by granting limited liability protection to allow regulation of college sports, preempting state NIL laws to provide a consistent national framework, we believe, for universities and student athletes in all states, and conforming that student athletes are not employees. This is where we stand currently on this. Obviously, we're paying close attention. The U of I system is committed to protecting universities, faculty, and students from efforts by foreign actors to compromise or unfairly exploit our research capabilities. We have our own internal controls in place to secure and manage access to research on sensitive topics. We work closely with federal agencies on this, and we educate our faculty about risks and about the importance of compliance with laws, regulation, and policies designed to prevent the misuse of research. But we're also, as you've heard, committed to advancing knowledge through the extent we can, open research and international collaboration, in which methodologies, data, and research results are shared freely with the public. We believe Congress and the new administration can strike an appropriate and proper balance that allows important research to thrive by making certain that any new controls are narrowly defined and appropriately so, and focus on specific technologies that are essential to national security, in which we're heavily involved, as you know, and are harmonized to be consistent across all federal agencies. Okay, so I've thrown a lot on the table for you, and thank you for bearing with me through this period. Your university system is on the move. We've got wind in our sails. We're in a growth mode. Research is expanding in all fields. We're a comprehensive system. We have urban, we have rural, we have agricultural, we have computing, we have arts, humanities, as well as bioengineering and technologies at all at the cutting edge. And we have a mission which is grounded in excellence, integrity, and service to the public good. And I just want to end my opening comments by thanking you all for being on this call and everything you do to support our mission, and your paying attention from wherever you are is very encouraging to us right now. Thank you. Back to you, Paul.
Thank you, President Killeen. Now we're going to move to the Q&A. We have about 20 minutes to address questions. We've gotten a lot of them. Many of them relate to some of the developments we've seen from the new administration over the past week and a half, and we'll be sure to get to those. Before we do, though, there's one question I'll start with. It's a bit easier. President Killeen, you've listed a lot of accomplishments. Looking back at the last year, what are you most proud of?
Oh, well, thank you for that question. That's a good way to start. I'm proud of everything I've talked about in terms of access, affordability, growth in enrollment, success in graduation, participation in civil society, all the things that we're doing. But our impact is what I'm most proud of. Impact. You know, I'm not talking about rankings, or I could. I'm talking about impact for the public good. If you look at just in economic terms, the $19 billion that I mentioned, and the fact that we have students from every county in the state, we have these networks of partnerships that are very significant. We have a lot of people looking to us for leadership is all very humbling and significant. We have to do our job really well. I think we have to, frankly, brag a little bit more about what's going on than we possibly have done in the past, so that there's a deeper appreciation. We need to earn the public good, and we do it through demonstrating all the things that we're doing. And there's a lot to be proud of. But I'm also very proud of the leadership and the colleagues we have, and all the participation we have. The students are wonderful to work with, and we are firmly bipartisan in outlook and spirit. That's very important that we stay grounded in that mission, which is a venerable mission now, going back more than 150 years, that we call the land grant mission. We need to now turbocharge it for the 21st century. That's a long-winded response to kind of a nice opening question.
Thank you. Next, a very topical question. Actually, we received a number of questions about diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI. And for context, I'll note that President Trump last week in his executive orders terminated DEI programs at federal agencies, and also targeted any non-federal DEI programs that may constitute, quote, illegal discrimination or preferences, end quote. So the questions we've gotten relate to how the university is responding to these developments and what they may mean for us.
So we're paying close attention. Obviously, like many of our peer institutions, we are carefully, kind of on a daily basis, Paul, as you know, because you've been part of it, we're reviewing all of the executive orders, the agency responses, and we've initiated a really careful look at all of our programs to make sure there is absolutely no discriminatory programs in place, and we're recognizing the concerns that have been expressed. We're working with peer institutions. We're looking at national organizations, and so it is a rapidly evolving time frame. So we're trying to reassure people with some level of calmness that we're here and we're going to continue our business, but we're going to be compliant and we're going to be responsive to the new administration and the agency requirements. And as in everything, we abide by the law. So we are going to be continuing to ensure that all of our programs and activities are lawful. We obviously know we've got the legal, advisors, etc., but there is state and there's also federal law. We also have some guiding principles that we're going to lean on in this period, and it's among them is our responsibility to provide an open and welcoming environment for all of our students, every student we have, and for all staff. So we're committed to ensuring that our campuses reflect the rich diversity of our state in all respects, and that students who may need some extra help to succeed know where to go to access that extra help. So we are fiercely apartisan, as I've already said a couple of times, except for one thing: we're fiercely partisan about our students, right? Every student has to succeed. Rural, white, Asian American, Pacific, all of them have to succeed. So when they come to our shores, and I know we're a landlocked state, although we're on the lake, we need to make sure that we do everything we can to ensure that they succeed and that their families succeed, and that they get credentials, meaningful credentials that can help them prosper in the world. So we're going to be closely involved and participants in this period of time where obviously there's new thinking emerging.
Thank you. Continuing in that vein, we got a number of questions relating to potential cuts to federal funding. Just for context here, I'm going to just step back and make sure everyone has a common understanding, because things have happened so quickly over the past few days. So in addition to that DEI order that I mentioned from the new administration, there were also executive orders targeting federal grants for certain clean energy projects, for foreign aid, and for certain other areas. Monday, the White House put out a memo ordering a pause on all disbursements for any grants subject to those executive orders. That led to a court filing and a stay by a judge yesterday. that put a pause on that temporarily. So at least through Monday, the OMB effort to cut off disbursements through February 10th is on hold. But the questions relate to how we may be responding to this, to what may be coming, as well as to some of the pressures that you mentioned in your remarks, President Killeen, about efforts in Congress to potentially cut funding. What does this all mean for the university system?
As you heard from my comments, right, we're advocating for continued and expanded support for the kind of knowledge base that the United States needs to be competitive in the global marketplace. Health, bioengineering, workforce development, advanced manufacturing, the list is long, and we're involved in all of those things. So we're keenly concerned about cuts in federal support for our research enterprise, because it's that significant. It's significant to national competitiveness and to building the kind of human capital that can really do things. So you've heard me say that, and we have some particular emphasis areas in student aid. Obviously, is probably number one for us. But we're going through a kind of grant by grant examination of all the things that we do. And I've got the chancellors, we're meeting regularly. We met this morning to go over in detail all the things that we're involved in. We're communicating with agencies to make sure that we are, and we're reading all of the things that you just mentioned, coming out, and very carefully to really, as best we can, understand not just the letter, but the impulse and the intent of the materials coming from DC. So this will continue, I'm sure. We're only, you said 10 days into the new administration. But we have been preparing for a transition, and we are responsive, and we're looking at our research portfolio very carefully, and we want to protect it as best we can, because we're very proud of it. It's doing a great job. We're internationally renowned in terms of the research volume, and when you boil it all down, our major priority though is students. Right, we want to make sure our students prosper, and that's where Pell and other things are really important. So we keep our eyes on certain balls very carefully, but we will be very responsive to the way agencies respond to this new environment.
People were also interested in learning more about how the system's federal engagement efforts work, and also how our entire alumni community, might be able to help contribute to those efforts.
I believe we've had the blessings of great alignment with our federal team, the state delegation, and the both in DC and in the state of Illinois. The tip of our spear, as you know, is in the federal state is you and your team, Paul, our federal relations team. It's on the ground in Washington. Works closely with the Illinois congressional delegation, administration, federal agencies to promote everything I've talked about, including the economic development missions of the University of Illinois system. We also we work closely. We don't have all the ideas, but we have a place, so we listen carefully to peer institutions, and also, for example, the Association of Public and Land-Grant Universities that we're part of, the American Council on Education that I've been a board member for. And as I mentioned, I think I'm spending time next week meeting with members of our federal delegation directly, working to keep our priorities top of mind, but also listening to what their priorities and their concerns, suggestions might be. I think one of our greatest strengths in all of this, though, is our alumni community. I'm just looking at the number of participants in this call. It's really remarkable. What a powerhouse we have listening to me rabbit along in this way. So thank you so much for being there for us. But the alumni that we have that are knowledgeable, that are sophisticated in their understanding of the nuances of regulations, etc., and many of them working closely in DE, are an incredible resource for us. And we've seen that work well through what we call Illinois Connection, which is our advocacy system, which is a formal group that stay connected. And so to any of you listening, please let us know if you've got concerns, issues, opportunities that you think we should be taking advantage of, challenges that we should be concerned about. But that, and then please work with Paul and his team in the DC context so that we have the best we can have a unified voice and a unified perspective that's grounded in pragmatic, the realities of our times, but also leaning forward aspirationally into the future. I hope that answers the question. It's a good question.
It does. And thank you for the plug. I appreciate that. You've talked a bit about some of the new executive orders. We've gotten several questions that are a bit more prospective in nature. And they relate to how the system plans to navigate potential future policy shifts we may see in the coming weeks and months from the new administration in particular.
The last couple of weeks, as they need to go by, we'll just outlaw sleep, and we'll just have continuous meetings all the time. We will navigate potential policy shifts as we learn and understand what they are in a respectful way. First thing, I know I've said it before, but we're not partisan. We have in our community, it's a very large community. We have all strands of opinion that you can imagine, and a lot of diversity in background, outlook, in many levels. So we work with officials on both sides of the aisle to advocate for our mission, which is students, staff, faculty, research, and economic development. Now, and we feel we've got a great narrative to say, and we get great support in that. So we're very early into the new administration, and we're eager to pursue every opportunity we can to continue serving our students and bolstering our research enterprise. And I do perceive some real opportunities. I mean, in terms of our leadership in AI and quantum and workforce development, I know the new administration is heavily pointing in those directions. We can really help, not help, but lead those enterprises significantly in many partnerships. We will be carefully reviewing any regulations or directives that come and reacting to whatever, if any, obligations that they impose upon us. We've seen some changes already that we've responded to, but we're going to go through an analytical way so that we're best prepared for what might come. We'll do everything we can to navigate what emerges to ensure that we can continue to deliver effectively on our mission and grow our mission. We have great relationships with the Illinois congressional delegation, Democrats and Republicans. We were able to work very productively during the first Trump administration. One of our faculty members worked in that administration at a time of deep partisan divisions across the country. It's really important, more important probably than ever, that universities work to bring people together and listen carefully, even if not agreeing with everything, but listening respectfully to overcome and to understand ideological differences. And one way we can do that is by focusing on policy issues, as we're doing and what we're talking through today, and providing objective information and data that can help make debates in Washington more informed and substantive with the kinds of examples we can bring to the table. And I could go back over our whole COVID experience to give you examples of where what we did at the University of Illinois really influenced national policy thinking in a positive way and saved many lives as well. So we just need to do more of that.
You talked in your remarks about the system's commitment to support undocumented and international students and faculty. And so we have a couple questions just wondering how that might change in the current climate.
Well, when we have a student on our campus, that's what they are. They're a student on our campus. If they need resources to help them succeed, we will help. We will try to provide those resources. And historically, there's been bipartisan support for both the Dreamers Act and for allowing the best and brightest from around the world to come and contribute legally as students and researchers in our. So we're going to work to champion those groups who are with us. And our job is not the same as some agencies in the federal government. Our job is to provide educational opportunities and pathways. And that means that we need to make sure that we understand anxieties and work to enable people to be able to learn and proceed in confidence, with confidence that they are supportable and supported by our university system. So that's a long-winded answer to say that, yes, we are supportive of, and we want to help our undocumented students when they're on our campuses to succeed.
Thank you. I'm going to try to see if we can fit two more questions in. Can you talk about what are the system's priorities with respect to the new Department of Education leadership?
Well, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, FAFSA is an important thing. It may sound like a technological, nerdy kind of thing to be worried about, but we really do need FAFSA to work well and in a timely way, and to make sure that the 2025-26 process remains on track. Without understanding of the families, who may, and students who may want to come, they need to know. They need to fill in the forms. The forms, I think, have been improving over time in terms of their understandability. But last year or two has been challenging for our students and our staff who are, engaged in the admissions processes. We have a lot of dedicated employees. So that is a system priority, is that we make as seamless as possible the whole federal aid interface with our students. The better that works, and the more timely those decisions, are communicated to our admissions staff, the better everything will flow. So that's important. So we will be definitely going to the Department of Education to describe, the impact of those kinds of things. And as I mentioned, Pell is central to all of our work, and so that will continue to be a priority. We've worked closely with the Department of Education through Republican and Democratic administrations. We will continue to do that.
Wonderful. Final question in the minute or so remaining. Can you talk a bit more about your vision for the system's global engagement?
Well, thanks for that question too. I mentioned that we have all of these partnerships, and to me, they're exciting partnerships because there's a lot of shared values still, in higher education spaces globally. We can talk with UNAM in Mexico, the top university in Mexico, and share a lot of the same kind of research issues in terms of childhood nutrition, maternal mortality, AI, quantum. Everybody's worried about cybersecurity, etc. So there are things we cannot and should not do, but there are things we can do really well through these kinds of network partnerships. And we have developed, I believe, a almost unprecedented set of a constellation of partnerships. I mentioned Brazil, Singapore is another one, Europe, of course. We're talking in Africa, not 150 MOUs that sit and gather dust on a shelf, but a set of vibrant partnerships with student mobility in mind too. Now, if we can knit that together in what I'm trying to call intellectual globalization, it's problem solving. It's not like, I think the whole issue of globalization, when you talk about, migrant flows and trade, I'm not talking about that so much. I'm talking about problem solving through generation of solutions to the world's challenges. And I'm very proud that this year we're going to be hosting the International Congress on Sustainability, Innovation, and Research. There'll be about 80 countries coming to Chicago in June to talk about solutions in transportation, in built environment, in agriculture, in energy. So we're getting to grips with some of the things that we're going to need to create solutions for, and the U.S. needs to lead this. And so I'm proud that we are in our own way leading a charge to convene on an intellectual problem-solving base. And I think it's always been part of the legacy of the University of Illinois. It's not really different. It's just it's changing circumstances now. So we want to take advantage of that, and there will be job creation. There will be companies that will be formed. There will be new markets opening up for us, just as these global partners see markets in the Midwest. We see markets in India, for example, where we've got some wonderful new opportunities for partnerships and things like AI, etc. So I would say that that's an area that is very beneficial that we need to explore. We need to do it carefully, and I mentioned all of the concerns about intellectual property and so forth as well. So we've got to do it with open eyes, no question about it.
Wonderful. Thank you. And with that, we are out of time. I want to thank President Killeen. I want to thank all of you for joining us. And I urge you all to please stay in touch. Please continue your own advocacy for the U of I system throughout what promises to be a very eventful year. Thank you again.